Live.
Okay.
There it is.
And in a few moments, I don't mind hopping over to YouTube and seeing that we're starting. But if you want to let people in, let people in. I don't know. I gave a lot of people the YouTube link, but I did put out the actual
the Zoom stuff.
The Zoom stuff too. So they had that choice.
And of course, my dumbass, my Bitly. Anyway.
I guess I can click admit all if everyone's fine with that.
You should be able to, sure. YouTube should be up and going in just a second. I was going to start making noises too, but all right. Welcome everybody to the live podcast Reels of Justice. We are, yes, applause for Reels of Justice. I'm gonna hand it over to Rob, and then he can introduce everybody. But first, thank you for tuning in for this. And we're going to actually unmute everybody so that if you laugh or, that way it's kind of like we are.
Or
really
boo. If you boo, that's fine.
Boo, I guess.
A lot of booing expected.
Yes. So, so that's fine. And of course, you're welcome to turn on your videos so we can see your lovely faces. So with that, I'm recording here, I'm recording there, we're recording on YouTube, it's going. I am actually going to shut up and hand it over to Rob Maynard.
All right, great. I mean, not much that I want to say to preface. The Reels of Justice is me, Dylan Schlender, Ryan Luis Rodriguez, and Ben Hassler, and we're joined by special guest Ron McAdams for this recording. But basically, the trial is kind of a good introduction on its own, so I'm just going to toss it over to Ben to get us started.
Order, please, order. The Reels of Justice is now in session. The following is rated NSFW. It contains strong language, adult situations, and lots of spoilers. Discretion is advised. Today we have Judge Dylan D. Deliberation presiding. Will you all rise for the Honorable Judge Deliberation?
Everybody get up.
Be seated. Welcome to the Reels of Justice. Today we are hearing the case of the people versus Indiana Jones in the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
At least I will go until I get gold on everything.
This 2008 action-adventure film features an aged Indiana Jones on a quest to stop an evil Soviet plot to harness mysterious skulls with otherworldly powers. We would like to take a moment to welcome special guest and friend of the court, Super Misty, Ron McAdams. For those of you unfamiliar with our court's proceedings, we are here to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. Here in this courtroom, films are to be considered excellent until proven awful, and the burden of proof lies upon the prosecution to prove beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that the film is guilty. Mr. Big Ben Hassler, you are appearing on behalf of the prosecution. You may begin your opening statement.
Apologies for my appearance, Your Honor. I was told to dress up, but you know what? I'll roll with it. I hate fakes, Your Honor. I hate them. And that is exactly what Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is. A fake, a pale imitation of what was once fantastic. Indiana Jones is a cultural icon. There's not a soul on earth who couldn't place the Raider March theme to the character when they hear it. And when you have a franchise so completely awesome and you plan to continue on it, you have to get it right. You have to. Failing to do so taints what you've accomplished before. It's like Michelangelo carving David only to finish the statue off with a mohawk. I'm sure everyone had their doubts about how great this film was going to be from the day that it was announced, but we were told not to worry about it. They had top men working on it. Top men. And like drones, we marched in and paid our fandom dues and consumed the product. Crystal Skull features a completely bonkers MacGuffin that in no way fits the tone of the artifacts before it, as George Lucas was absolutely obsessed with the idea of introducing space aliens into the world of Indiana Jones for some time. Spielberg was wisely against this, but they somehow found a compromise by not making their aliens from space, but from the space between spaces, in a throwaway line at the end. So yeah, George Lucas won that battle. He's going to get us killed chasing after his fortune and glory. And as a result, we have a off-kilter indie film that features Roswell, flying saucers, telepathic Soviet operatives, and alien heads that somehow magnetize things to it and sometimes not, depending on its mood. It sounds more like a bad X-Files episode than the exploits of a famed archaeologist adventurer, does it not? Instead of mailing George Lucas plot proposals for Indy 4, they would have been better off mailing it to the Marx Brothers. The key problem here is that since we have 3, dare I say, iconic films before this one, we have established a suspension of disbelief with said films. This movie takes a hatchet to it. Perhaps a person could technically survive being near a nuclear blast in a lead-lined fridge, but the silly image they paint of that fridge being violently heard miles and miles away from the blast site, spinning around at breakneck speeds, and a man crawling out to survey the mushroom cloud. Are you truly in the movie at this moment? Are you thinking, is that really the direction they decided to go? Do you realize what Crystal Skull is? It's a transmitter. It's a radio for speaking to crap.
Thank you, Mr. Haslar. And appearing for the defense is Rob Maynard. Mr. Maynard, please present your opening statement.
Yes, one moment, Your Honor.
Oh, my.
Your Honor, esteemed members of the court, I, like all of you, am a tremendous fan of the Indiana Jones franchise. However, unlike some of you, I'm actually a fan of all of the entries in the Indiana Jones franchise. So I guess ultimately that actually makes me a bigger fan than you. And as such a big fan, I always felt disappointed that there were only 3 films in the series. I always felt like we deserved more Indy. In fact, I wouldn't even have minded if they recast Ford in the early 90s with someone else. Now, I know some of you might think that statement is blasphemous, but I remind you, everybody said there would never be another Bond after Sean Connery. Yet, lo and behold, George Lazenby went on to blow him out of the water and become the quintessential Bond in all of our hearts and minds. So, where am I going with this? My point is, the more Indy, the better. And it just so happens that we needed to wait almost 20 years for Lucas, Spielberg, and Ford to all get on the same page. So be it. And yet, despite the long hiatus, I feel like they still managed to capture the spirit of what makes Indiana Jones so special. It's a nonstop, action-packed thrill ride through exotic locations and unexplored ruins. The pursuit of an artifact firmly established with a deep lore drawn from actual mythological basis. And it has a lot of fun stretching its legs out in the time period in which it's placed. Obviously, due to the advancement in Ford's age, it chooses to be an homage to the sci-fi B movies of the 50s, as well as the jungle epics and motorcycle films of the time, rather than an homage to the 30s action serials like the prior films. However, I feel like they managed to use this to their advantage to make a movie that feels distinct from the others, but still familiar. So you get the same great character of Indiana Jones, but in a whole new time and place. And what the hell else could anyone else ask for? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Maynard. Mr. Haslar, you may now present your first exhibit.
I have 4 that I'd like to bring up today, Your Honor. The first one, let's take care of some of that low-hanging fruit before we get into the nitty-gritty. When most people think of this movie, one of the first scenes that jump to mind, for good or ill, is that nuclear blast, because it seems like such a fever dream. So Indy, just after escaping from Area 51, man, I wish I was kidding every time I say that, finds himself in a little mock neighborhood, and everything about this testing site is so unbelievable. I don't even know where to start. For some reason, the US government found it necessary to pay howdy doody time for lifeless mannequins. The water isn't running in the house, but a dummy outside is holding a hose to water the lawn. I don't really understand the parameters of this nuclear test that they're running, that, oh, we need to see what happens to water here, but not there. We need to have a TV running for some reason. We're going to survey to see if Howdy Doody survived. It just makes no sense. Then Indy, hearing the siren sounds, realizes they're about to drop an A-bomb. So he climbs into a lead-lined fridge at ground zero, mind you, and is hurled from miles and miles to just perfectly, I guess, land outside of the zone of radiation. You don't see any. I'm sorry.
No, keep going, please.
Oh, We don't see any other fridges flying out of this bombed area. He just lucked out, I guess, with picking the right one. And my point with all this is not just how stupid and decidedly not Indiana Jones it feels, but that it takes most people out of the movie as they ask questions about what it is you just witnessed. Is this some sort of, it's more at home than a Looney Tunes cartoon than in an Indiana Jones film. I ask you, jury members, to reflect on this in your deliberation session, because in other indie films, you're almost certainly enveloped in the world from start to finish. Here, it breaks that suspension of disbelief quite early. Esteemed Funk Master Maynard, would you care to rebuttal on this?
Yes, the infamous fridge scene. This seems to be the sticking point for a lot of people. I always just had fun with this scene because I'd always taken it that the duck and cover films of that age, where they told children to hide under desks, which were never going to protect them, they may have also suggested that people hide in things like fridges. But then I did some research on it. And, in 1953, the government did carry out nuclear tests like this. The tests were called Operation Doorstep was one of them, and which they actually created an authentic looking neighborhood like this, fully furnished with model homes. You mentioned the TV running. I think all of this is just to see exactly what effect would be had on these appliances and on these people in these moments. Now, one of the things they did in one of these prop towns, which was called Survival Town, this is a model village was built for another operation called Operation Q. And one of the things that it wanted to study was how a town would survive. And part of the food test program that they did, they wanted to measure the effect the atomic blast would have on frozen foods at different distances from the explosion. And in that test, a Frigidaire chest freezer, the model's not exactly stated, was placed in a concrete home about 4,700 feet from ground zero, which, if you watch this movie, the bomb does not drop directly on the town. It is a few miles outside of town, and it's elevated.
Barely.
It's at least that distance out of town. Prosecutor.
But my point is the suspension of disbelief within it. Like you're confused and you're asking questions. You're not like, oh my gosh, he survived. You're like, huh.
If you're so focused on reality in Indiana Jones film, you've probably sat down on the wrong film, because this is a movie about Arks of the Covenant and Holy Grails. It's not a realistic film series. So if I may continue, they did put a lot of frozen food in that chest freezer, and when the bomb exploded, the freezer, they basically checked on it 4.5 hours later, and despite some damage around it, the freezer was relatively unharmed. It creased the door a little, it broke off some plastic lining, but the door could still be latched and it still worked. And they were able to actually tested the food inside, and there was no trace of radiation. They actually ate the food after.
Did they take it out within spitting distance of the mushroom cloud?
What do you mean?
He crawls out of the refrigerator and he's like, hey, the mushroom cloud's right there.
Well, we don't know what kind of long-term damage Indy may face after that. He may develop leukemia in a few years.
I certainly hope so.
The movie doesn't go on to show us that, but it's entirely possible. I don't know what sort of properties drinking from the Holy Grail might have imbued him with. Potentially.
Oh, you're reaching now, sir.
No, I don't think that's a reach at all. We're talking about a man who has drank from the Holy Grail. To say that he might not have some resistance from radiation, we don't know. He may die of leukemia later. The movie shows us that for the time period, all he has to do is go and get a little scrub down and a cleansing, and he's ready to go back into action, baby.
All right, thank you for that, Mr. Maynard. Mr. Hassler, would you like to continue on this fridge point, or would you like to move on?
No, I think the jury can my point is suspension of disbelief, not whether or not it's possible. My second point I would like to bring up is the communist subplot. There's a section after the nuclear blast. We have Indy and his colleagues get essentially fired, I guess, because they're suspected of being red. Now, I do get that given this time frame that you picked, you probably feel like you had to say something about commie hunting. It is in the height of the McCarthy era, after all. But this sequence feels rather clunky. It doesn't connect to anything in the film afterwards. After the motorcycle chase, which admittedly isn't terrible, that grilling that he got by the FBI isn't talked about ever again. And the only thing that they say about the school afterwards is Jones gets promoted to vice dean or some such thing at the end of the movie. Why? It's not like the government really had anything to do with that crystal skull that he returned. If anything, they made it clear that they don't care. given that they locked the remains of one alien that
I'm
they
going to care that I
had.
don't care.
Yeah, I mean, to retort to that, like, I don't think there's anything now that Harold Oxley is back. It's probably very conventional that Indy does get his job back. But another part or thing that I like about this movie is it gives Indy a happy ending, right? And so you're looking for Indy to have an unhappy ending here, but it's so much more satisfying
No,
to
my
see that
point
he
is
gets to
the
retire
communist hunting
as
plot
associate dean.
doesn't connect to anything.
Which communist subplot? The communists are the main bad guys.
Were they
just
get
like
him
the Nazis
fired,
were in
like
the
from
other
his
films.
job because he's like he may have worked with Reds? We don't know.
The only reason they're following him at that point is because he was kidnapped by the communists in the beginning. So they're not aware that he helped them against their will.
It's poor storytelling. The narrative isn't complete. It's just a hodgepodge of ideas they tried to string together because given the time period, they probably felt they should bring it up, right? And as a side to this, since it features a character we've never met before, couldn't we have gotten John Rhys Davies or something like in this character? A character we do know and care about since Sean Connery had retired from acting at this point. A quick peek at his IMDb page shows that at this time he's working on Anaconda 3, the voice of Gimli in various Lord of the Rings games, and an Uwe Boll film. This dude is not busy. My only guess is he
Mr.
felt a
Hassler.
stink on this and opted to stay
Which
as
character
far
are
as
you
possible.
referring to? Which character are you referring
Sala,
to?
John Rhys Davies.
Was approached.
You wanted him to play who instead? Indy's friend
Himself.
at the beginning?
No, he's not in the
Sala.
film at all. He stayed as far away as possible when we get a
No, but
new
you're
friend
saying
that we've never
you
heard of
want
before.
you want him in the movie instead of the British guy at the beginning of the movie is what you're saying?
Yeah, the guy in the glasses, whoever that is.
He did turn down the film.
Exactly, and that tells you something. He knew to stay as far away as possible.
Well, Sean Connery turned down the film too, and that didn't help him out.
He retired
Now-
from acting, so I'll give him a pass.
And I would have all been for Sean, Indiana Jones's father being played by like George Lazenby in this film. I'd have been perfectly content with that, but it's not what we got. No, but you're saying that because it shouldn't be done because you didn't get back all these kind of tertiary characters. You got back the main character, and you got back Marion. Like you got back the characters that you needed to tell a satisfying closing story.
Well, no, I'm talking about this sequence where they're like,
No.
Tommy, they introduce a new character
Nothing.
just to make it go through.
It's fun.
Mr.
All
May,
right,
do
my
you have
third
any-
point
Okay,
is
please,
the action and the CGI. One of the greatest things about the original trilogy is the action. All of it was exciting, but most importantly, it felt real. CGI wasn't a thing yet, and this film is an example of how a comparison of the two methods has CGI being a detriment. Those films felt real. Indy's clothes are ripped and dirty and grimy by the conclusion. This film feels like it was shot on a soundstage. You're very much aware of artificial lighting and all of it. And we're presenting this all in a very over-the-top manner. In the first film, we had Indy sliding beneath a military truck and his back is getting assaulted by rocks on the dirty road. You could feel that strain and that impact. He's always just barely escaping every sequence by the skin of his teeth. In this movie, we have Shia LaBeouf straddling two vehicles, repeatedly getting hit on the crotch by oncoming plants. We have him swinging on vines with greaser monkeys, apparently at speeds over 40 to 50 miles an hour, to catch up with a caravan he just lost. We have characters yelling, Jonesy, after the writers apparently forgot that Indy broke his nose in the scene prior. Marion is pretty much the chauffeur for the team throughout all this, just relegated to driving duty. And we have incredibly obvious CGI ants forming an insect pyramid to attack Kate
You think those
Blanchett.
ants are obviously CGI looking?
Oh, when they're
Are-
doing the pyramid thing, they are. Not so much when they're just on the ground.
Well,
but when
no,
they're
but I mean,
climbing up
I think to get them to do
thighs.
something difficult like this movie did want to employ more practical effects than CGI when they initially started out, and they ended up using more CGI because they felt it worked for benefit. Like Spielberg wanted to keep using like painted matte drops like they did in the original one. He wanted like to still be able to see the brushstrokes, and at the end he decided against it. And similar things like Harrison Ford did not do a lot of his own stunts in the original films because
but it was still a real
safety
stuntman.
standards weren't up to snuff as they were later. And so he began, by the time Crystal Skull comes around, he is doing his own stunts because they're able to use more safety apparatuses that are removed by CGI. Considering it's 2008 and I've seen what CGI often looks like in DC movies that are made nowadays, then I think that the monkeys and the ants really don't look that bad. Not to the point to where they take me out of the film at any point in
Cough,
time.
gophers, cough, cough.
They're prairie dogs,
Order,
one, and they're
order,
actually
prairie
prairie
dogs.
dogs. That's real footage of prairie dogs that they did record. Yeah, I mean, so I like the chase through the jungle. It reminds me of like the cart chase in Temple of Doom, where there's a lot of action going on vehicles, and there's a lot of cross vehicle action. You know, a lot of people complain about the monkey swinging. I can't tell you the precise and exact like rate of swing he would have, but I do know that the cars are moving parallel, and then they turn 9 degrees horizontally. So
They
he's
do.
got
He
at
still
least
has to get at least.
he
the
has to
40 miles
travel
an
the
hour.
hypotenuse, but we don't have the variables we need to know if he technically could catch up. We don't know the height of the branches he's on. That's going to determine his swing very heavily. We
This
don't
isn't
know
a
the length
character
of the
escaping
vines.
by the skin of his teeth, though, like it is in the other ones, where it's just every action scene is so intense. This is just pure fantasy.
I love a bunch of the action, like when Indy's escaping in the warehouse and he misses his swing and falls back into the
That's
truck.
a good moment. I will.
When the
admit
two trucks
It's
are
very
coming in
Indy.
and Jonesy, they're planning to play chicken, and Indy hops up onto the light and the trucks
that.
crash.
You don't know him.
You don't know him. That's a great moment of a very gritty action. I don't know if that's actually Ford. I hope it isn't. And then right in that chase too, before they get on the rocket sled, when Indy does that cool swing down and kicks the evil commie through the window. I mean, if you don't like Indiana Jones kicking
In that
commies through
Weapon X
windows,
chamber, you mean? Yeah.
why are you here?
How does Kate Blanchett and all the characters in this film manage to keep their clothes so like neatly pressed in every scene that they're in? Where are like all the ant
That
guts and
is-
dirt on that uniform? Even
that
at the
is-
end of the film, Indy's clothes look just like they did at the first scene.
That's commie dress code. First off, you always
What about
have to
Indy?
keep your
He's got his
clothes
clothes
neat
are
and
clean.
pressed all the time. Yeah, that's
Dry
like,
cleaning
legally
in
a
the 50s,
decision.
it was the revolution for dry cleaning, I guess.
Exactly.
When they're going to the temple, we have all these natives break out of walls. And I always have to wonder, do these guys just spend their entire lives cocooned up in there? Like, how do they get their food? There's a throwaway line at the beginning of the film that says Akator is guardian by the living dead. So are these guys zombies? They don't look
They're-
dead. How does
They're
this
clearly
work? What are
objection, Your Honor. They're clearly not zombies. They obviously are living people because the commies gunned them down in the backs like commies.
So
do.
they're just like, so they just
Um,
seal themselves up in the walls for no real reason? Just
No,
like,
because
maybe today's the
I
day
think-
someone's gonna come in.
They know intruders are coming, I'd say clearly, because they just had a loud gunfight just a few miles up the cliff. And so they may have scouts in the area that would tell them too. So if these people only live a quarter mile, half mile, if they live near the temple, I would say those are just hiding places in the temple where they can come out and ambush people. I don't think they hide in the temple all the time because they're clearly living mortal people.
They're breaking out of the walls, sir.
But you
And they
can
must have
get
done this
in
before
on
with
one
Oxley.
hole and then break through another flimsy hole. That's what I'm saying. Like the temple is set up to ambush people with like live combatants.
No, they should have just been in the shadows. Like that would have been easy. Why didn't they do that? No, they went the unbelievable route. The one that makes me ask
you're
questions
looking
like,
for
wait, what?
believability in Indiana Jones, and
Well, no, the
I
one that
find
just makes you like
preposterous.
scratch your head, you know, more than like like in Temple of Doom, like we got the guy in the shadows, like waiting to like strangle Indy with a piano wire. Like we could have done something like that.
I
It
mean,
would've been
where
fine.
did they get a piano in the Temple of Doom? They got pianos
It's a
lying
palace.
around. See, I could just sit around and nitpick stuff too. It's easy if you want to
It's
do
a
it.
palace. It has
But-
pianos.
But the
Did you
point
not
is,
see that dining banquet hall?
the point is Indiana Jones has never prescribed to, exact realism. Especially the early films are playing off the 30s serials, which are a bit closer to reality. But this film, the fourth installment, is more of a sci-fi film. So it's less what is probable and more, well, what's possible? Like this is possible, so let's do it. It's
It worked
leaning
out great
almost
for
close
Highlander
to
too, didn't it?
it's almost close to a fantasy film at times, but and I don't think that's far-fetched for Indiana Jones to get into. I mean, if you can take down a plane with an umbrella scaring a bunch of seagulls up and making it crash, then you
That
can
works.
swing
They
on
did
some
it on
vines with some
Mythbusters.
monkeys. He what?
They did it in Mythbusters. It works. I don't know. I can't vouch for that.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. And
I
at the
think
end
they
of the
did
day,
do the
we're talking
motorcycle
about
flip.
we're talking about a series that deals with impossible, improbable situations. You know, there is no Ark of the Covenant. It's not real. You know, there is no Holy Grail. It's not real. You can't drink from a cup and live thousands of years. You know, what did that guy eat? You want to pick away things? Talk about Last Crusade. What did that guy eat? Like the Holy Grail, he didn't have to eat anymore. If you want to,
the Grail sustains him.
Okay, so the Grail
makes you immortal, so like nothing can kill you, including hunger. Anyway, throughout all the films, we also had John Williams expertly scoring each scene. Even going beyond the Raiders March, every movie has distinct scores, like the theme of the Ark, the theme that plays when Short Round is doing his thing, the theme that plays between India's father, many more. Listen to the score at the end credits of each film, and you instantly know which one of the three it belongs to. If you can hum a tune from this one, I give props to you, sir. It seems like even Williams is slumming it in this film.
I don't know that the music for this one is memorable in my head at the moment.
He just reuses things from the previous ones.
I do know that there were special themes written for Cate Blanchett's character and the skull itself, and they were meant to be more sci-fi B-movie type scores. So Williams did go through and write those types of
things.
I'm
sure he did, but they're not memorable. He's slumming it. He's just like, yeah, you know, something like that.
I argue that I don't know exactly how. I know that a lot of the atmospheric stuff in Temple of Doom is memorable, but besides that, all I remember is just Indy's theme from any of the other movies.
If I played you like any one of those songs, you'd recognize. Oh yeah, that one's in Raiders. Oh, that one's in Crusade.
That's conjecture.
All right. Well, I have one last point I would like to bring up before I rest, Your Honor, and that is the MacGuffin. I imagine this will be a lot of talking because this is sort of the central point. From the outset, George Lucas was obsessed with the idea of having Indy squaring off against aliens. He really wanted this, so much so that he wanted it to be called Indiana Jones and the Saucermen for decades in planning. So let's talk about the Crystal Skull itself. In Area 51, they find out that because it's apparently super magnetic, but it's only magnetic, this magnetic power of it's all over the map. It attracts gold, even though gold isn't magnetic, but it only does so when the cloth shroud is removed from it. Yet you put one wooden box over it and it'll attract gunpowder from over 70 yards away. When they move it, like the metal lights in the warehouse start pointing to it, but only when it's moved. Shouldn't all the lights in the warehouse be pointing to it the whole time? At least the ones near it should be. They should all start shifting as it's carting away. I get that, but like, why were they like sitting like at a perfect 90-degree angle before that? It's only as powerful.
I would say objection, Your Honor.
At any given moment.
Objection,
Mr. Hassler, let's let Mr. Maynard comment on the magnetism.
The quote-unquote magnetism, which remember Indy describes because he briefly studied the Roswell corpse at the time of the crash. He was briefly called in as an expert. So the way he understands it is as magnetism. But in truth, it's really not that, as we see throughout the film, because crystal, as you know, as Shia LaBeouf points out, crystal is not magnetic, and Indy points out, well, neither is gold. And yet the skull seems to be able to periodically attract these items. I would say this is not a constant force. It is meant to be inconsistent because
it's clearly
the skull
not.
attracts things at will. The skull attracts things at will. It's beyond an object. It seems to have a consciousness. That's why we see it basically talk to Indiana Jones. We see it talk to Oxley and brainwash it. It's sentient in some way. And so it chooses what it draws. I think it's interesting.
I want to have coins attracting me. Oh, gunpowder. Yeah, over here, fellas. Like,
but if you think about it, if the kind of resources that a figure like this would attract at that time, this is a creature that basically demanded a city of gold was built around it. So gold is somehow special.
Treasure.
Well, and gold, because they had a fuckload of gold too. So gold was also their treasure.
Since you brought up that Indy examining the alien, I kind of want to go into this just a bit because it seems like they got a very random sample of professions. Like, let's see, we should have a marketing executive, an accountant, maybe a potato inspector. And yeah, let's throw in a professor of archaeology and have them have a crack at these remains and see what they make out of it. All of our army scientists are quite frankly stumped. So, we need to keep it top secret though. Mum's the word, mum.
For what? For checking out the Roswell?
For Indy, like getting the Roswell crash remains. Like he was like thrown in a bus with a bunch of random people and they're like, why? Why would the government do that?
Well, because they have no idea who else to talk to. I don't know if they actually had accountants. That's an interesting
They
point.
got
if they
scientists.
did.
There's total military scientists.
Accountants aren't
If there's anything the
scientists,
military
sir.
wants to, it's
Objection,
keep it
Your
quiet.
Honor. Accountants are not scientists.
Sustained.
So those, thank you.
My
Those
point,
are different.
but, like, why would they need a tenured professor of archaeology?
Of archaeology for an interesting artifact like that.
It's not an artifact. They know it's an alien crash.
I mean, Indy has a lot of talents of like, I'm just
You're
saying that
reaching.
besides being, I don't think I'm reaching. I never really found it strange that they call him in, because you have nobody who knows about these things contemporaneously. So at least if there's, call in any kind of expert who might know objects of the past, he has as good a chance of anyone who knows what this whole new object that came and fell out of space is. I mean, what expert do you call in? Like, you just scattershot.
Your own military scientists.
Let's get anybody.
So the alien plot line, if you're keeping track, is very convoluted. It may be the textbook definition of a convoluted plot. Way back when, some conquistador managed to find an alien head.
Francisco de Orellana
really got it. We just know that he did. We don't know why the other aliens are sitting around as skeletons, one without its head, except that they are. So this conquistador and his men take the head all the way away and die at the hands of some natives. The natives, good sports that they are, mummify all these guys and leave this bitchin' head with them. Some time ago, Indy's friend Oxley finds the grave with the skull, and it makes him crazy. Why the skull didn't make the conquistador crazy, we don't really know. Maybe they just didn't stare at it at just the right angle.
Objection, we don't know that he didn't make the conquistador crazy.
Well, he took it away. He wasn't compelled to return it. The skull compels Oxley to take it back to his body. So Oxley, now in a fevered delusional state, somehow manages to by himself take the skull miles and miles through the Amazon jungle, down a river with 3 ginormous waterfalls, past all these native guardians who burst out of walls and then apparently seal themselves back in afterwards, only to make it to this pillar before scratching his head and giving up. Instead of leaving the skull there as close to the body as he could get it, he instead decides to take it back out of the city, up the 3 waterfalls, back through hundreds of miles of Amazon, and leave it in the conquistador's remains. He then gets locked in an insane asylum, and then only there figures out, dope, there was sand in that pillar, should have drained it out. Isn't that just the way? Meanwhile, the Soviets have Indy help them find the remains of an Area 51 crash site that had nothing to do with those alien remains, except George Lucas really wanted to have Indy go into Roswell and Area 51. Indy and the Soviets become aware of Oxley. Indy manages to find out from Oxley's asylum where the conquistador's remains are. They find the skull. They trace their steps back to the ancient city, drain the sand from the pillar, put the skull back in the skeleton, express full-heartedly that the aliens aren't aliens, even though they do look just like aliens. And they download so much information into someone's head that their head literally explodes as a reward for their help in getting their skull back. Roll credits. Man alive, how needlessly complicated can you make an adventure film? You didn't need to. All you needed to do is string together a bunch of interesting locations and action sequences. You didn't need to go through all this.
Which is exactly what they did. You don't follow Oxley on his journey down and back. That would be tedious. You know, it's
tedious to figure out like how everything connects.
But the thing is, Oxley is like the living map that you get for almost any sort of a treasure, right? He's the one that knows how to get there. They don't have some ancient map.
Just
they
have
have
the skull
Oxley
download to his brain, and Oxley never went to Akator. That would have worked.
He also doesn't go down the waterfalls. As they say when they're in the duck boat, he went down by land. They say that clearly in the film.
Like that'd be difficult for a crazy man, but hey, what do I know?
I don't know at what point he actually goes crazy. To continue on, he does somehow get down the waterfall, possibly by land. Possibly he has guides. You know, you're not saying that, you know, he may not be alone. And when he does get to the temple, yes, the guards probably confront him, but as we see, he can keep the guards at bay with the skull, which is why he picks it up and shows it to him. He's done it before. The guards go away from it. The ants go away from it. The skull is seemingly able to keep him very safe. I imagine no wild animals are messing with him as long as he's got that skull.
It must levitate him down like the mountainside too. That'd be
who
nice.
knows? Who knows the powers of the skull? I mean, I think you're being silly there, but who knows? This thing could have all
silly in a
sorts
movie where a guy climbs on a fridge and gets nuked. Oh,
Thank
my bad.
you.
My
Now
bad.
you're starting to see the light, counselor. You're talking about what's silly and what's not in a film, in a series, in a franchise where a man pulls another man's heart out of his chest and holds it and it sets on fire.
That was badass, sir.
It was badass. And there's a bunch of badass stuff that happens in this film too when you give it the chance. You focus on a lot of the negatives and you won't see a lot of the great stuff that happens. Now, I was confused about the two skulls initially too. I was like, well, what happens to that first skull? You do see it later in the tent with the commies in the Amazon. They still have the corpse and they still have the skull. Essentially, they seem to be just collecting alien bodies to study the properties of the skulls. But the only magic skull is the one Oxley has. That's the one that needs to get back to the temple, needs to get retornoed to basically satisfy those skeletons in a way I don't quite understand exactly, but I think the mystery is part of it. As far as punishing, Cate Blanchett, I think, if someone like Oxley had put the skull out, I think that they might have been able to see into Oxley and know his motives and not destroy him.
No, they wanted to reward her. She's like, give me all the knowledge, and they're like, okay.
Exactly. And she can't handle all the knowledge. She asked them to stop. It explodes their head.
They just wanted to copy what they did in Raiders. Like, oh, you mess with powers beyond your kin, young man.
It's what they do at the end of every one of those Indiana Jones movies. Remember the guy who drinks from the Holy Grail and turns all old because he made the wrong choice? Cate Blanchett made the wrong choice. She chose poorly. That's just a staple of the series. The bad guy always gets his comeuppance, the main bad guy, from the actual artifact itself.
All right, so
the
Mr.
whole alien
Hassler
just doesn't fit with a 30 serials established. It doesn't fit well. It's not peanut butter and jelly. So that is what I rest my case with. You didn't have to resort to aliens. There were other artifacts to explore.
All right,
well, hold on. He rested his case,
right,
Mr. Maynard, so you can go ahead and present your arguments.
Let me get another.
We worry about you, Mr. Maynard.
Can't see my skull. There we go. So as far as it not fitting with the old ones, I think that it fits very well if you step back and look at it expecting to see a 50s film, right? Like you're not going to battle Nazis in the 50s. That idea was put up in one of the old versions of the script. He was originally going to go down to the Amazon and fight ex-Nazis. And Spielberg shot that down because after Schindler's List, he didn't think he could make Nazis lighthearted in that way anymore. And Harrison Ford didn't like it either. He said, we've done Nazis to death. So it's the 1950s now. And who's the big enemy? Red Scare is going on. McCarthyism is in the late 50s, it's going down, but it's still basically in swing. And that's what you're going to make your bad guy. You're going to make them communists. And I think they do a great job of giving personality to the communists. There's a lot of research into what they did and studied as far as, what the communists were about. The Reds were very involved in like ESP research. If you look at like Leonid Vasiliev, he conducted experiments with subjects into telepathy in the 50s. The Americans played with it too. They were trying to like see if they could have people like through telepathy communicate with submarines in an undetectable way. And they never actually succeeded. And another point I like is that they had Cate Blanchett, have the sword. And I thought that was just so she could sword fight Shia LaBeouf. But actually in like 54 and 55, like Fenrik Markey helped the Soviets launch a program to become the most dominant fencers in the world. So I think similar to how they were trying to take over chess, they were trying to take over fencing too. I think they were trying to become like the leads in all the bourgeoisie activities that they could at the time and prove that, the working man was better at all these things.
Yet they can't beat like a 20-year-old greaser.
And a 20-year-old greaser who went to fancy prep schools and was taught debate, chess, and fencing, and clearly pushed on by like an almost stage mom, right? Because Marion, when he's fighting her, Marion is on the side shouting advice about riposte, and clearly she attended tons of fencing matches for Mutt at the time. And I was wondering where that came from, and thinking about Raiders, there's that moment in Raiders where Marion is like confronted by the guy with the knife and all she has is a pan and she has to run. And it's kind of like Marion realized after that, I've got to learn to defend myself and I got to make sure my son knows how to defend.
Well, Indy just,
Order. No guns in the court, please.
I mean, Mutt doesn't have a gun.
He should. Indy has one, which he doesn't fire once in this movie. Not once.
I mean, well, Indy wasn't there in the sword fight, dude. He's fighting
All
somebody
he does
else.
is drive, and he gets in a few punching matches. That's it. That's all he does.
Well, he is an older man at this point, but he is able to go toe to toe with Akami and knock him out into a whole pile of vicious man-eating ants, which is sweet. I love the whole ant sequence. The ant sequence might be one of my favorite parts of any Indiana Jones film.
Except for where they're crawling on top of each other. I like
That's what ants actually do. It may not look super great. I think they used but I would say they used the best technology they had. You know, you had George Lucas there. He was using light and sound and all that magic crap they did with Star Wars. And thank you, Ryan. You know what it's called. He was using all that. And I think that's, you know, if anyone can make it look better in 2008, show me. But, you know, that's what they had to work with. And I love that's what ants do. They make those little ladders and help people. And that's such an anti thing to do, especially those little driver ants. So I love the whole ant sequence. I really find the whole jungle chase super fun. Even the monkeys. I want to hate the monkeys, but I can't. Like, if Batman can fucking swing onto someone's car and kick him in the head, Shia LaBeouf can do it. You know, he can do anything Batman can. So
That's a big claim.
well, but we see it, right? He does it. He swings and he does it. Other things I like about this film, I love John Hurt. He doesn't have a big part, but that's kind of where he was at that time, and maybe always. He's kind of always those tertiary cool characters. But I love him as Harold Oxley. You know, he's been mind controlled by the Skulls, and that lets him kind of just be crazy and outlandish. I love that Marion's back. You know, I think
they
that
don't
gives
do
Jane...
much with her though. They just like have him bicker for a bit, and then she just drives. That's all she does.
What do a lot of those love interests do in the film? I mean, they've been kidnapped, and she's not a fighter. You know, she does. You know, what is she supposed to do? She helps quite a lot by driving. She figures out how to get them over the cliff onto the branch and down into the river. She's helping.
That was believable. And then fly swats like all those communists on the rock face.
I mean, listen, if you want to sympathize with the commies that get swatted by the branch, you know, you go ahead.
Good thing she picked the rubber tree, the South Amazon rubber tree.
Well, hey, who knows what's growing there? You know, if a tree can catch a Ford Explorer in Jurassic Park and you don't say boo to it, I think a branch can catch a duck boat in Indiana Jones. You know, you've got to suspend a little disbelief to enjoy some of the film. If you just
disbelief was spent entirely.
If you just nitpick everything, you're going in not to enjoy it. Like, you're consciously trying not to enjoy it.
I wanted to enjoy the film. That's the point. Like, when you don't want to step outside and think, wait, what's going on here? But the film makes you because it's so outlandish.
But that's the kind of stuff you would see in like the Tarzan movies of the 50s. And, you know, you'd see quicksand, you would see wild vine chases. You know, that's the type of movie they were going to make.
I would expect that in a Tarzan movie. My suspension of disbelief is set at the start of that movie. I have 3 movies before this where this does not fit.
Well, you need to step out and realize it's not the 30s anymore. It's the 50s. We're not doing 30s serials. We're doing 50s B movies.
It would have been great.
You can't with the Harrison Ford, who's 64 years old.
All right, so Mr. Mann, would you like to elaborate on any further points here as we're moving along?
I feel like I may have touched on a lot of the stuff I did want to touch on. Another point I do like that Mac, the British guy who kind of betrays him back and forth, is like a great allusion to like Guy Burgess and Donald McLean, who were MI6 agents in the 50s who defected to the USSR. So like there was a lot of British double agents work going on at the time, a lot of betrayal. And I love that that's kind of an allusion to those things.
Did you ever care about Mac though? I mean, like he's a double agent and then, oh wait, no, he's just a single. No, wait, he's lying about being a double. Oh wait, I just want money. Like,
I mean, care about him? I didn't care that he survived, but he's just a tertiary side character. He's a minimal antagonist. What was I supposed to care about him?
Exactly. We're supposed to care about our characters in the movie.
Every character? You care about every character in every movie.
Indy.
That's
ridiculous. All right, order. Mr. Maynard, if you'd like to continue your point,
Where's
please.
the hammer?
It's right here. I got it.
It squeaks when you bang it.
Wait, you're not hearing it?
No, I couldn't hear it. I just heard banging. But yeah, I mean, before I close up, I think that the film is a lot of fun. If you nitpick, oh, this isn't realistic, then you're not going to have a good time. But you need to kind of step back and realize that a lot of stuff in the first three films weren't realistic. And you had a good time anyway, because it told a fun story. And I think that this film tells a fun story in that way. And a lot of it is based in scientific kind of precedent. I know the fridge was complained about a lot, but there is precedent for that. That fridge went on tour around the country after that test. So that fridge, surviving nuclear blast, that became popularized as like an urban legend or a myth. And this film plays with that urban legend and a myth. Can a man actually survive in a fridge? Probably not. He would certainly get hurt when it gets thrown. But you suspend that disbelief because, well, it might be possible based on this urban legend. And so I'm going to take that a step further in a sci-fi movie and say, okay, it's probable.
They ran with that football, man.
I mean, he was better off rolling as he did in the fridge than coming to a dead stop.
Yeah, he's lucky. Damn lucky.
Indiana Jones, he drank from the Holy Grail, man. He's a lucky man. He's got a horseshoe up his ass.
All right, so Mr. Maynard, any other point you'd like to make, or are you ready to close your argument?
No, I think I'm ready for closing arguments.
Can I just ask someone to explain a joke to me that I never got in this film?
You're on thin ice, Mr. Hassler.
It's not a point. It's just I want someone to tell me what this means. Where Mutt throws the knife at him, and Indy's gonna cut his ropes, and then we hear a tearing sound, and everyone looks like, oh no, what happened? And then, oh wait, he's fine. What was that? What was that?
I think it was just a fake out to make you think that maybe Indy had cut himself.
But he didn't. I have no idea.
No, he didn't. No, he didn't. It's not. It's another very small thing. I mean, I would let it go.
It's a small thing. No, it's not a point. It's just weird. I wanted someone to tell me.
Well,
it's even possible he ripped his jacket.
Well, gentlemen, we have Trevor Fitzpatrick saying Indy ripped his pants. Order.
Challenge. I want to see the screenshot.
All right. Now, thank you both. Mr. Hassler, you can present your closing arguments.
From its opening with CGI gophers to its closing with almost a torch passing scene, Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull is a travesty and a complete insult to the great adventure that came before it. It looks fake, its supporting characters are lackluster, and its plot is a complete non sequitur. It's much maligned, and for good reason. Not just in comparison to the original trilogy, but as even self-contained, it's unsatisfactory. 50s sci-fi can be cool. 30 serials can be cool, but when you put the two together, you're not always going to get your Reese's peanut butter cups, Aliens always have been the lamest plot twist in any movie, from Knowings to Sign. They're fine when the suspension of disbelief has been set that aliens could exist at the beginning of the film, when it's established, and that's the idea that we're going towards. In any other case, it's just too easy and too weird. This movie is terrible. You know it. I know it. The American people know it. If it wasn't the years that killed Indy, it was the mileage, which is why I say we bury it. Who knows? In 1,000 years, even Crystal Skull may be worth something. Son of a bitch. I hear they're working on Indy 5, and if you'll excuse me, it's time to crack the whip on them so I can wash that terrible taste out my mouth. The prosecution rests.
All right, Mr. Maynard, you may now present your closing argument.
Before I will start, I will mention there was no actual passing of the torch, right? They faked it out like they was going to pass the torch, and then Indy said, no, Shia LaBeouf, you're not the new Indy. And I think that's a great moment that should have made a lot of fans happy there at the end. But Your Honor, esteemed members of the court, I feel this movie has garnered a completely unfair reputation because audiences wanted to focus on the little negatives rather than the big positives of this film. If you asked me, do you want to see Indiana Jones punch out a bunch of evil commies led by a telepathic Cate Blanchett? I tell you yes. If you asked me, do you want to see Indiana Jones start a rumble in a malt shop between the Socias and the Greasers while pursuing an artifact of potentially extraterrestrial origin? I tell you yes. If you ask me, do you want to see Indiana Jones visit the Nazca lines in Peru and then travel through the Amazon in search of El Dorado, all while dodging carnivorous giant ants and punching out a bunch of commies? I tell you yes. Give me all that, because Indiana Jones isn't supposed to be scientifically accurate or plausibly realistic. He's supposed to be fun. He's supposed to be action-packed and funny and sometimes silly. And The Crystal Skull brings me all of that. People have become so obsessed with the little things in the film, like surviving a nuke in a fridge or Shia LaBeouf swinging on vines with monkeys, that they can't even see the wood for the trees anymore. This is a damn good action film that revels in both the history and pop culture of the 1950s in order to bring us something that we all know we really wanted, and that's more Indiana Jones. Thank you.
Thank you both. Members of the jury, Mr. Ron McAdams, Mr. Schlender, Mr. Better Dead Than Red, Ryan Luis Rodriguez, you have all heard the facts concerning this case. It is now up to you to determine if this film is guilty of being a bad movie. The bailiff will escort you to the deliberation room to render your verdict.
All right. As jury foreman, I believe that it is my it's our duty as jurors to express our inherent biases in this room. I fucking hate this movie. I fucking hate all of it except for one thing. The silver lining to all this crap, and her name is Cate Blanchett. I don't know who told her to put on the Emo Phillips wig. I don't know who told her to use the accent of Natasha Fatale from The Adventures of Rocky and Bullwinkle. I don't know how any of these decisions were made. I just know that she made them, and everybody in that production simply saw it, stood the fuck back, and went, "You go, girl. You do that." She is amazing. Oh my God, she's on another planet, but I love her so much. She's so stern and so cold. She's my dream dominatrix. I would, oh my God, I love this woman so much. The scene where the ant is trying to get her and she smashes it with her knees. I've never wanted to be an ant so much in my entire life.
Ryan, no, this is live. We can't edit this out. Oh my God.
So I have some serious issues with the film, but I want to let our guest, Mr. Ron McAdams, get his voice in here.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Ryan. That's Mr. Who?
Mr. Ron McAdams.
You know what? This movie, when I first saw it, I was really, really put off by it, just because you grow up as kind of an Indiana Jones kid or like a Star Wars kid. You kind of have an idea of what your movie is supposed to look like. And there was such a gap between when like Last Crusade was made and when this was made, that it was like all this new technology, and we had the Star Wars prequels. So you kind of already knew how it was going to be Lucased up. But I don't know. It's kind of, I don't absolutely hate it, but at the same time, if I look at it like as an adult, where I'm like, the F did you do to my Indiana Jones? Yeah, it's probably not very great. But if I think about it from the point of view of how old I was when I watched those other movies, and how it's just supposed to be escapism, it's not really supposed to hinge on any sort of like, this is how physics work, or this is really like what's going on with, I mean, if you want to worry about like geopolitical politics and stuff like that, just watch Phantom Menace, because that's the Lucas movie that covers your politics if that's your jam. But like, this is just like, we need the people to be bad guys, so let's let them be bad guys. And it was, I enjoyed it for those type of things. But yeah, I mean, yeah, if you want to actually like sit back and put on your critic's hat and say, like from as a modern audience, it's I don't want to be haunted by the spirit of Gene Siskel any more than I already am. I gotta crap all over this movie. Yeah, it's gonna be, you're just gonna have to say, yeah, it's absolutely guilty. But if you are just like, you know what, when I was a young guy and I kind of watched these things and I wasn't so strict on all of this, that it's something that I'll give a pass to, just because I like the franchise and I like the zany little things that they did, and I like sci-fi, and these people are older than dirt, And so you've got to push the story forward as much as you can, even though, let's be fair, Indiana Jones was supposed to be like 34 or something in Last Crusade. So it's, you've got these actors playing like way younger than they ever could anyway. So I was like, what are we going to do? It's got to be old, crusty Indy. And, Sean Connery's not coming back after, that terrible adaptation of that comic book. So
that's a future episode.
Oh, whoops, sorry, not trying to spoil anything.
And Reels of Justice does not endorse that anyone watch The Phantom Menace, just to be clear.
I am endorsing
Not
that
even the pod
everybody,
race.
like tomorrow, just whittle out like a chunk of time and just watch Phantom Menace. Just watch the political scenes because it is tight.
We're going to have to put a disclaimer on YouTube.
Thriller.
This content is disputed. Dylan, what are you thinking?
When I first saw the movie in theaters, I was kind of like what everyone else was thinking, which I thought Ben brought up a really good point. You get pulled out pretty early, and it's hard to get back in. I think we had a lot of Shia LaBeouf fatigue at the time because of like Transformers and stuff too. But Shia LaBeouf would go on. He made that movie Eagle Eye, and he was great in that. So like when you could pull Shia LaBeouf out of the timeline, he's not bad. I don't know who would have necessarily done that character better. Like he just had to be like a greaser. He was very much in the style of Martin Brando from the Wild Bunch there.
If you're taking casting suggestions, I would say anybody. I would say anyone.
No, but I'd say like how much was that? It's just the way the character was written, though. I mean, if you put like Justin Long in there or something, he's still going to be swinging with monkeys.
Oh,
it could be like a 50-50 though. Like, I mean, he's gotten a lot better. Like, if you've seen Honey Boy, he's fantastic in that. But
at least Justin Long can get you a discount on a new Mac. I'm just saying.
That's true too. And then so that was.
All right, somebody reboot Dylan.
Uh-oh.
Finally, it's not me.
Hey, I'm Dylan. I vote the movie is guilty.
Quiet, you.
Did Dylan pull a Ron Paul? What happened?
Maybe he's just standing really still, and he's just really, really good at it.
Oh, no. Rob may be gone, too.
Yeah.
Wait, did the rapture just happen? But it's like it's going by time zone?
That would explain why I'm still here.
I got 2 hours to repent. Thanks for the tip, Ron.
Yeah, right, Ben? Let's go. We just keep running west.
They clearly looked at my juror number and said, nope, not that guy.
They should just be able to jump right back in. This happened, let's see, we were talking to Rebecca Hansen and Tim Ryder yesterday, and my power just shut off boop, and came right back on. Thankfully, Steve as a co-host, and they kept it going. So we're gonna run into these bumps and bruises of the internet. So while
I keep hearing Dina talk as if it's like getting in the way of like the funny making.
Yeah, because have you seen my really sophisticated thermometer?
How is the telecom? How is the telethon going?
We're going into a commercial break. Here's Dina Dolphin with her.
Yeah. Has Jerry Lewis woken up from his nap yet? Is he back out?
No, yeah, he up and down. He
is this the 3:30 a.m. slot where it's just people spinning plates?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And damn it, I just broke my last one. But in the chat, because I'm gonna plug this stuff. This is going on while we wait for Rob to come back. I've got my phone. I know, he knows how to get a hold of me as we could get them back. The raffles, there are charity raffles that are happening right now, and they will go through at least November 30th. Because I have ones that I haven't even announced yet, I will probably actually extend the entry time. So far, last time I looked, you guys have raised $400 for NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. And that is an organization that's near and dear to a lot of our hearts. especially Mary Jo mentioned the same. And we all could use a little help with our mental illness, especially in this time. But, you enter and you can win some cool stuff. I guess I've already kind of announced it. The next package that I'll be putting out is actually a Manos Hands of Fate package. You'll get a personalized video from Jackie Jones, who played Little Debbie in Manos. You'll get a hardback covered copy of her book, autographed by her, and as well as the Riff Tracks live DVD version of Manos Hands of Fate. So those are all, that's the next prize package that I'm going to announce. And I still have a lot of stuff. So not only are we going to do some random giveaways tonight with Jonah, but again, these are the charity raffles packages that I've put together. Entries, it's just like any charity raffle. It's $1 for an entry or $6 for $5. You pay through PayPal. If you don't have PayPal, send me a message. We can work something out. And for those of you who have reached out to me about making sure that your entries got in, et cetera, I promise I will get to you. We'll figure it all out. No one will go ungotten. Yes, Ron. Thank you for raising your hand.
Mrs. Kater.
Teacher,
I'm back.
Hey,
I'm back.
Sorry about that.
I'm just curious. Based on this thing behind you, not the telethon, but the rest of it, did you find the serial killer?
Not yet.
Okay.
Still looking. I'm still
Or
looking.
yarn.
And in fact, I will go ahead and promote one of the things that I run, which is the monthly postcard exchange amongst Misties, where all of these postcards, things are happening on my phone. These are all postcards from fellow Misties, as well as other fun gifts I have received.
So are we back? Are we still in
Yes, you're
deliberation?
back. Fine. I'll quit talking. Let me get you guys can continue. I'll go ahead and make you co-hosts again. Yes, and by all means, welcome back to the real world.
Conclusion.
The thrill, yeah. Sorry.
Previously
Sorry about
on the Reels of Justice. So
Did I just stroke out, or did we just really see like a long Hulu commercial?
I was surprised by how many good points the defense actually made, like addressing some of the main crucial issues that I have with the film. The prosecution, of course, fantastic. But I think like my biggest problems with the movie is that it was shot entirely in the United States, the first Indiana Jones movie to do that. So you have a movie that is set in places like Peru and set all over the world, but it looks like they're in a soundstage at all times. When they're doing the chase with the fencing and the fucking monkeys, that whole thing, you could clearly see that they're in front of green screens. They're not in a physical environment. And when they're in the I guess the only way I could call it is inside the mountain at the end, it doesn't look like they're actually in a location. It looks like I'm in a line to get into a Universal Studios ride. And I'm just kind of sitting there going like, oh, there's King Kong. Yeah, it's fun. Okay. All right.
Well,
oh, wow. Mud on the wall. Okay, great.
And you're right, Ryan. This movie would have been so much better if they would have just shot it on location in Vancouver. Just think of the tax benefits, money they could have saved. It was like,
a little in Halifax. Just a little in Halifax. That's all I ask. But I do want to actually kind of make a controversial point here.
Ooh.
I have an issue with the interdimensional beings, but if they were just aliens, I would be okay with it. For some reason, the inability to commit to a sci-fi concept is more insulting than doing it and not nailing it. Like, if you're gonna do aliens, just do aliens. Just flat out say, you know what? That's what they are. That's why their ship looks like that. They're fucking aliens. Whatever. I'm okay with that.
They could not get Kate Blanchett to agree to spend the last 5 minutes of the movie in her underwear. So
that's a shame.
it couldn't be aliens.
Oh.
Plus, those PETA people are all over them for how
You're
they
gonna get
treated
them
those
riled up.
ants. You can't bring a cat onto the set.
So, what are we thinking, guys?
I'm giving it a pass just because it's not terrible. It set out to do something which was we need to. It's like most things where it's like, oh, they're going to remake Short Circuit, or they're going to remake the Goonies, or don't remake the Goonies, but they're going to remake whatever. And it's like, because we're running low on nostalgia for whatever this property is. So we need to get something back in the system to remind people that this was a thing, so that we can then springboard and maybe make a new go of things. So this movie really only existed because somebody wanted to like have one last payday for like Frank Marshall and all those guys. And now they'll do Indy 5, and it'll be like a whole new it'll be Justin Long as Indiana Jones.
I'd watch that.
And with his Asian sidekick Jeff Murphy, because racism, you just keep your racist names to yourself. So I think I'm going to give it a pass. I think that it's okay movie.
I'll be brief. The first time I saw it, didn't like it, but on the subsequent rewatches, I like all the 50s stuff. I like the sci-fi. I like watching it with that in mind. And you you enjoy it a lot more when you go into that saying like, look, this isn't Raiders. It's kind of doing its own thing. And, Harrison Ford's old. When you look at like how like Harrison Ford was phoning in other roles at the time, he actually did a really good job bringing back Indy, I thought. Like, yeah, he was a little tired, but yeah, I'm going to say not guilty on the movie.
All right.
Before we go back in, I wanted to say, I just, because we were talking about like maybe recasting Indy. I know that this just blue sky in here, but River Phoenix was amazing. They should absolutely get him for Indy 5.
Oh no, bro.
Oh,
Too soon.
You see what you've done?
Are we still going to the Viper Room after this?
Oh my God.
The rap party. Okay.
Jesus.
Anyway.
all right. Well, I don't want to make this a completely a total farce.
Go do it.
So,
do it. Do
guilty.
it. Unanimous.
So
Unanimous.
friggin'
You
guilty.
son of a bitch. You
Get
son of a
guilty.
bitch.
Except for Kate Blanchett, but so guilty.
You're going to be brought up on charges. My God.
All right, let's bring this home.
Do we need another commercial break? I mean, I've got more shit to peddle. Just saying.
Wait.
I'll dance a little bit.
He's ready. He's ready.
All right, Mr. Foreman, have you reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor. In the case of The People versus Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, we find the accused somehow not guilty of being a bad movie.
No way.
baby!
I call no way. You want me to look inside your souls and take a good hard look.
Okay. Order in my courtroom.
It's a travesty.
The verdict is so rendered. However, I would recommend that Mr. Indiana Jones sees a doctor immediately. The fridge may have protected him from the nuclear blast, but once he stepped out, that's a different story. Court is adjourned.
Is it too late to pass out flyers about jury nullification?
Maybe.
Little too late. Little bit. This is Amanda Hugginkiss from the Gabagool Gazette reporting to you live from outside the Reels of Justice. Mr. Hassler, would you care to share your thoughts on the jury's verdict?
In the Latin alphabet, crap begins with an I, and I think it's time you ask yourself, what do you believe in? If you don't believe this movie is terrible, Amanda, you will. You will become a true believer. I don't know why I'm dressed as Indy and quoting all the other characters. This movie fried my brain. I'm done.
Thank you. And here comes Mr. Maynard. Somehow you won. Excuse me, could we get a word on how you feel about today's verdict?
First off, I'd like to peddle my friend Dan Aykroyd's Crystal Skull vodka. It's delicious and refreshing. It got me through this whole show.
Wow.
It's
Anyway,
filtered through
Amanda.
diamonds.
And anyway, Amanda, this is a great day for justice. I didn't think this was possible. I came in expecting a losing battle, but we saw it through. I nitpicked where the nitpickers wanted. And I got us down to the truth of the matter, and we got a great movie off. Hopefully a lot of people are more forgiving of it. I hope they revisit it, because I'm sure a bunch of people only saw it once in theaters and never came back to it. So I'm telling people, rewatch the movie again. Turn down the lights, have some popcorn, and you will have a good time, because those fucking ants are sweet ass ants. Maynard out.
Thank you very much for that utter bullshit. That's all we have from the courthouse today. Let's go back to the studio for post-trial analysis. Hug and kiss out.
I stole my hug and kiss.
So on the record, I do agree that this movie is not bad. It's just an average
you
film.
say that now. I'm going to
Justice.
disrobe on cam.
Ben,
No,
And
Ben.
I'd like to, Ryan,
Ben,
just
I'm court
admit,
appointed. When you're court appointed, you got to put your,
that's
prejudice
true. But
aside.
Ryan, just admit you don't think it's bad either. Just admit it.
Don't do it, Ryan. Don't
I'm
do
not
it.
as mad at it as I was when I first saw it.
Yeah.
Old age has really affected me. I will
Mhm.
say that.
How many
That's fair,
Harrison
too.
Ford movies are we gonna get left now?
I love him
anyway,
in this
you know?
movie. That's the problem. Is that
Man.
I have a Harrison Ford fetish, and so I will do.
You
I
have a
will-
fetish for pretty much everything.
I
Kurt
do,
Russell,
but, like,
Harrison Ford.
like I will watch him in absolutely anything, but when the movie kind of like crumbles around him and kind of fails him, that's when I tend to get mad. And I think the biggest problem with this movie is that it's not the only Indiana Jones sequel that I don't like. I don't like Last Crusade, but
Agreed.
but
I don't think it's great.
I think that it is, if you're gonna do this again, at least go for it. Really do something that has a contribution to the series instead of just, well, people wanted another one, so whatever. Let's give them something.
Just let the record show Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull, Final Fantasy, The Spirits Within. That's the record,
That's fair.
folks.
That's fair.
Just so everyone knows.
Totally fair.
That's what it is.
Poor Ben.
To me, I don't know. It's
Poor
close.
Ben.
And
It's apples and
and,
oranges.
hold on, guys.
we
Hold on.
only have a few
Wait
minutes
just a
left.
minute. Hold on, Rob. Benzie. I really think the movie's terrible, but I'm a double agent. You remember that time that we reviewed that other shitty movie? You remember we were double agents then?
I'm cool.
I really think this movie is shite, but I just, I'm trying to get some gold or some shit. I don't know. What's my motivation?
Changes from scene to scene, mate.
Let's close this out too with since we only have a few minutes, we'll close this out with recommendations of justice. So let's throw it out to special guest juror Ron McAdams. If you are recommending a movie that people should check out, tell them a movie people should watch right now.
Oh my gosh. I can tell you in 2 seconds because I actually just watched some stuff recently.
Let's
If you
go to
wanna-
Ben first.
No, I've got it. I'm on
Okay.
it. I'm on it. I was going to say probably something that I watched recently that I didn't think that I would really like was my neighbor Totoro. No, I'm joking. The Shape of Water. If you've still not somehow seen that, you should take a few minutes and watch like a modern sort of like Gilman movie with more nudity than probably it needed to have, more Gilman nudity, but it was like a really good film. If you've not seen that, like, I don't know what I was waiting on.
Not guilty. ROJ certified.
Yes, we've put it on trial for Reels of Justice on the podcast, which you can check out on Apple and Stitcher and pretty much everywhere nowadays. And we did put that one on trial, and it was close. It was
It was a
close. Our
great
guest
episode.
Liesl Hansen did a great job, but we did find it
I
spoilers.
agree,
found
though.
it
It's a fun movie. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a cartoon recommendation, watch Thundercats Roar before it's off TV.
No, good one.
I'm going to recommend the only movie that I can think of that does aliens and archaeology really, really well. So much so that it spawned an entire science fiction series behind it, and that's Stargate.
That's it. Anything else to say about it?
No, just what I said before. That just my lead, and it does aliens and it does archaeology. It combines the two in a very cool way that I have not seen done since.
Plus James Spader. So
And
Yeah,
that guy
Kurt
from
Russell,
Crying
oh,
Game.
and-
Pretty great. Dylan, what do you got for you? Were a judge, so what do you got?
Well, okay. I've been reading a bit about World War II, so I'm going to recommend Tora, Tora, Tora. Just a really good World War II movie. That's all I got this week.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean,
Yeah, no,
Blood's in
Pearl
there.
Harbor Day is coming up December 7th. So Tora, Tora, Tora. Great movie. Watch it.
Mhm. Watch
Ryan,
a movie
what if-
that'll live in infamy on a day that will live in infamy.
Yeah, there you
Ooh.
go.
Too soon.
We have fun.
So my recommendation, going with Indiana Jones, is a movie called Raiders: The Story of the Greatest Fan Film Ever Made. It's about the kids that made the shot-for-shot remake of Raiders of the Lost Ark on home video that they did over the course of 9 years. They like went to the theater and like saw it like 200 times to get every single scene right. And so it's a chronicle of how they made that fan film, and then also visiting them 20 years later, trying to finish the last scene that they never got to do because they couldn't afford it. And how kind of like, it's kind of a testament to, if you have enough passion and you have enough love for a subject, that you shouldn't let anybody tell you exactly where your line is. You should just go for it. And it's an amazing film. It's for rent on Alamo On Demand, or you can get it on Amazon and Google Play for rent. It's great.
Sounds good. I'm totally like blanking and spacing. I didn't prepare a movie at all.
Neither
So,
did I, dude.
how about Dr. No? It's a 007 movie. I think he punches the fuck out of some communists. There's like a dragon and who is that? Is that Raquel Welch or is that
No.
No,
Who the
she's
hell
too
is that
young.
one? It's not Ursula Andress, is it?
Yes.
It is.
Ursula
Yeah.
Andress.
Yeah.
Ursula Andress is Honey Rider, which is a great character name for anyone to go with. So, yeah, why not Dr. No? Knocks out commies, and that's how it is. So, I mean, boys, this was pretty exciting, right? We've never done a live show before, so this was fun.
Yeah, thank you,
It
went very
Ron
smoothly.
McAdams.
It was very. Say it for us, Ryan. How spooky was it?
Ron McAdams.
I want you to say
That good?
spooky, but whatever. And a big thanks to Dina Dolphin for organizing this whole thing and organizing this whole week.
Thanks,
Did a
Dina.
great job.
Very
Works
well.
very hard. So if you have some spare time and you can thank Dina, stop by and thank Dina for putting all of this together. And thank you, of course, to Ron McAdams for joining us in the jury and for voting not guilty. I really appreciate the hell out of that. Another loss for Ben, but he'll take it on the chin. He's got a big enough chin. And you know what's great too is we dress like this every week when we record, and finally we can actually show it off to people. And I think that's
I'm
what's
always the
really
main
special.
character of whatever movie we're doing. Yeah.
I know you do, and it's so unappreciated.
Man, when I did
It's so
Aki Ross in Final
unappreciated in
Fantasy,
your
that was not pretty.
I thought it was very pretty. Ryan did too.
Yes. I
Yeah,
remember.
Ryan
It was like the
fetishizes
Maxim
me,
cover.
just like everything.
And with that, we are all out of time. We're all out of show, but we hope you join us next time as the reels of justice keep turning.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank you, guys. Count it.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, everybody involved in Reels of Justice. That was super fun. And just like we've been kind of talking with the other folks we've done Q&As with, we're thinking about maybe doing this at Christmas time. Everyone should be staying home anyways. David even mentioned possibly all the way through Easter. So maybe we can do this again next month. But right now, I'm going to send everybody to the waiting room while I get Jonah in here so he and I can talk about how we're going to do the rest of the evening and what's exactly going to happen, because we've only talked a little bit via email and I don't know exactly what he's going to want to do or up for doing. So I'm going to pause some of the recording